G'day, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Harry and today we're brewing something special out here in the doghouse, which is an ANZAC Biscuit Ale. Look, Anzac Day is an important day for all of Australia and it's coming up next month. So I figured I'd share this recipe with you now so that you've got time to get it ready for April the 25th. Look, I was lucky enough to know both my grandparents, both from the greatest generation, and both of them served in the Australian Army during World War II. My grandmother was an incredible woman, an amazing cook, not to mention a bit of a looker back in the day. My grandfather was punching well above his weight. There was always something baking and the smells would summon my grandfather down to the kitchen, who'd pinch something off the cooling rack, break it in half and share it with me. We had to test that it wasn't poison. Of course, that was much to the disgust of my grandmother. Look, this beer is all about using the flavours of the classic ANZAC biscuit, biscuity malts, oats and toasted coconut. So James and Mavis, or Nan and Pop, this one's for you. I think about yous every day. And if you're from the US, when I say biscuit, what I really mean is what you guys call a cookie. And before you ask, no, I'm not making an Anzac Day gravy beer, although now you've got me kind of curious. Oh, and a big shout out to Mary from Florida in the US. Who was keen to see some no-chill action. I'll be brewing this one on the 20-litre Braumeister using a no-chill method, so stick around. This is the first of many. Let's dive over and get into it. So I've got ourselves prepped, ready for our brew day. I've got the guts taken out of the Braumeister, so the malt pipe, as well as the filters, the lifting hook, and the stabilisation staple that allows that to sit and drain. I've got my refractometers, the pH meter, thermometer, our pipette, our bottle of Star Sand. I've got a rinse bottle over here. I've also pinched a couple of spoons, a white saucer, a shot glass. Now I've weighed out my brewing salts already, and sitting on top is 5.6 mils of phosphoric acid, as well as half a Campden tablet. I've weighed out our 60-minute hops. Got our 10-minute addition, which is our yeast nutrient, as well as half a Werflock tablet. Now if we just slide over here. All right, so I've got our ingredients for the beer itself. So our shredded coconut, golden syrup, 490 grams of Munich malt, 3.2 kilos of Voyager schooner malt, our 490 grams of rolled oats, as well as our 490 grams of biscuit malt. Now I've also gathered up my PPE that I'm going to use for today. Now let's talk PPE for a minute. You guys know that I'm not really a stickler for the rules, but out here in the doghouse there's a couple and they are enclosed footwear, protective eyewear, always. Gloves, both waterproof and heat proof, as well as just some normal disposable working gloves. So, while we're on PPE, I like to wear one of these aprons. It just protects me from anything that might splash up, especially hot work when we get into the boil. The last thing you want to do is come out and be all grain brewing out here in that $5 Bintang singlet that you picked up cheap in Bali, as well as your Japanese safety double pluggers. Oh, for those of you in America, that's flip-flops. Thongs out here is a complete different thing and you don't want to wear one of them either. Now, you might look like a bit of a goose, but I've seen it go so bad, so often on brew days, especially when you've got mates around. The only other rule out here in the doghouse is no beers till after the boil. So in our Braumeister, I've got 20 litres of filtered water that's ready to go. I've got 19 litres of sparge water that's also been carbon filtered, ready to go. So on the brow we're going to come over, push the brew start button, and you can see I've programmed the ANZAC Biscuit Ale in with our steps, and it's going to ask us is the water filled in. And we're going to continue by selecting the little tick icon, and then it will start to ventilate the pump. So let's have a look at that. You'll see it pulses 3 times to ventilate the pump and expel any of that air that's trapped in there. Now that that pump's primed, it'll just come up to temperature, and we can just put the lid back on while we wait for that to happen. Now, while that's coming up to temperature, we're going to grab our 2 spoons and we're going to crush our Campden tablet. Just add that to the water and that'll neutralise any residual chlorine. We're also going to do the same thing to our sparge water, but we'll get our brewing salts in now and allow them to mix through. Give that a bit of a rinse. There we go. And before we mash in, I've got 5.7 mils of phosphoric acid. We'll just stick that in as well. For our sparge water, just pop the lid off there. Again, crush a half Campden tablet, stick that in, and mix in. And make sure that we deal with any residual chlorine or chloramine. Lid back on, we're good to go. So now let's mill some grain. And that's what our crush looks like. It's pretty coarse. You can see there's no whole grains left in there, and there's not too much flour. It's exactly what we're looking for. Now, because this recipe's got oats in it, and oats and hot water make porridge, and the last thing we want is for a stuck mash. As a bit of an insurance policy, we're just going to add some rice hulls, just a couple of good handfuls. We'll just mix those rice hulls through and grab our oats. Now I like to mix them through when it's dry so that they're pretty well evenly distributed. There we go. And that way you're not going to end up with a big blob of oats blocking everything up. Okay, we're at 55. We're ready to mash in. So let's put our malt pipe in. Come over, put our malt pipe in. Make sure that's seated. And then our bottom screen with our bottom fine screen, put that in. Make sure that goes all the way to the bottom and that screen is in place. And let's get some malt into this thing now. So that's our malt in. And we just need to work it around and make sure we've got no dough balls. All right, we're going to use the back brewing finer screen as well as the yield increase disc. Hold down bar on and we just wind that wing nut. Down. It's just got to make sure that that malt pipe's not going to lift. Then we can hit the go button. And it'll start recirculating. From there, it's just a matter of putting that lid back on and letting the Braumeister do its thing while it mashes. So we've mashed in at 55, and that's going to give us a protein rest for 15 minutes. And then we'll ramp up again to 67 for 45 minutes. Once this is finished and come up to temperature though, after that first 15 minutes, we'll take a pH reading. And the Braumeister should start making its way up for its next step. And all I've done is just put that shot glass in the freezer so that when we take our sample, it actually chills it down a bit quicker. And there's our pH there, 5.25, 5.24, well within range. You can see that's after that protein rest. It's starting to develop a little bit of colour. Alright, let's let this mash and we'll see in a minute. Righto, let's see how we've gone. I'm going to grab ourselves a sample. You know, you only need a pipette full. We'll come over and do our iodine test. Now we're just going to put a pool of that on our white plate. Grab hold of our iodine in the dropper bottle and put a couple of drops on there. And you can see that that stays that brown colour. When it turns a purpley colour, it means conversion hasn't finished. So that's all converted, so we're right to mash out. To do that, we'll just ramp the temperature up to about 76, 77 degrees. And what that'll do is it'll halt the enzymes and lock in our profile of our beer. Now just to show you what it looks like, I've got some corn flour and some water on our saucer here. And watch what happens when I hit that with that iodine. You can see it turns that dark purpley colour. That tells you that there's still starch in there and that our conversion hasn't finished. See how it becomes that dark purple colour? That's a quick way to tell whether your mash is finished or not. Now that our starch test is complete, we've ramped up for our mash out, and what that's going to do is halt that enzymatic activity in the beer and lock in the profile of our beer itself. So at the completion of the 15 minutes, we'll then lift that malt pipe out, give it a bit of a rinse or a sparge with some water, and then take a gravity reading for our pre-boil gravity. Okay, so our mash out's complete. And we'll get ready to remove this malt pipe. Gloves on. We'll get rid of this wing nut. And our hold down bar. Okay, get rid of that top screen. Alright, now we're going to lift our malt pipe up now that our staple's in. Simple as that. Now we just need to sparge with 7 litres of 78-degree water. Alright, a good technique for this is to use your mash paddle to help break up that stream of water. Alright, I'll see you when the sparge is over. Okay, we'll just check our volumes, and all I've done is I've marked off one of my paddles for the 20 litre Braumeister, and have a look. And that's 27 and a half. So we're in good shape there. We can then set the controller up for the boil. Righto, we'll stick our lid on, let it come up to temperature. And that's what our spent grains look like, just sitting there inside a 20 litre bucket. They'll go down to the chooks later on this afternoon, and they'll think it's Christmas Day. Righto, let's see if we can get a gravity reading. 1.042. That's what we wanted. 1.049 final gravity. 4.3. So we'll save that. Right, so the pump's just shut off. We're at 88. Very shortly the Braumeister will prompt us to take the lid off, and from there we'll fit the stainless steel boil lid, and that'll give us a bit more of a vigorous boil. As we're coming up to temperature, I'm just going to get rid of this lid and put in about 7 or 8 drops of firm cap, just to control that initial hot break. And we'll come back in with our boil hood, and that'll allow that steam to start escaping. Righto, so we're at 98 degrees. I'm going to take this boil hood off. And stand by with a mash paddle, ready to go. As well as I'll come over here and just grab this bottle of Star Sand, just in case. There you go. It's telling us to remove the lid. We've already done that. All right, it's coming up to a boil now. We just keep stirring it, and then I'll put that boiling hood back on it, and we'll get our first hops in. See you in a sec. Okay, so we're up at a boil, and we'll add our first lot of hops. And that's 16 grams of Melba. Alright, that's it. Obviously, keep a weather eye on the Braumeister itself. You don't want the thing to boil over. But seeing as we've used that ferment cap and nursed it through that initial hot break, you shouldn't have any real worries. So what I normally do is get on with some cleaning, while just keeping an eye on the Braumeister out the corner of my eye. No need to sit over the top of it and hover and wait.
I'm watching you, Wazowski.
Coming up to the 50-minute mark, so 10 minutes left in the boil, and we're going to get ready for our 10-minute additions. There we go. Let's get rid of that hood. Okay, so into there, half a tablet of Werflock and our yeast nutrient. And we'll also get our whirlpool paddle in there to sterilise that for that last 10 minutes of the boil. Now, while that's been happening, I've got our cube ready. And I've just put some star sand in it. The heat's going to really kill anything in there, but it never hurts. So that's that. Ready in my bucket. I've just got the transfer hose just sitting there, and I'll hook that up down here to the triclover when we're ready to get going. So that's the end of the boil. I'll just come around just here and we'll give this a bit of a whirlpool. Get rid of our whirlpool paddle. And we'll just let the thing settle down for about 10 minutes, just leave the lid on it and get ready for the transfer. Now that we're done with the boil, let's head down and visit the girls and drop off those grains. Afternoon, ladies. There we go. There you go, that's the girls' fed at Cluckingham Palace. They reckon Brewing's alright too. Righto, so if you haven't got one of these, I suggest you go and grab one. They're a cube spanner. They're an amazing bit of gear. They really help you get the right amount of tension on the cube lid. You'll see how that works in a minute. But for now, into the sanitizer. So it's been about 15 minutes. Let's have a look. And you can see that's settled right down. So we're ready to commence our transfer into our cube. So we'll just put the lid on it. All right, so cap off into our bucket. Okay, now we're just going to open our butterfly valve and start transferring the beer. Now as the cube starts filling, what we're going to do is we're going to stick a hoof underneath the cube there, bring our bucket over, grab our lid, because what we want to do is fill this handle area up and make this opening, or the opening in the cube, the top of the highest bit of the cube itself, to minimise the amount of air that we're going to have in the cube. All right, I can go over there. We're just going to put our lid on. Just hand tight to start with. And then push down on the cube, squeeze the rest of that air out, or as much as you can. And then come in with your cube spanner and just give that, I don't know, quarter of a turn. You'll feel it. That's it. Done. From there, all we're going to do is roll that cube over on its side. So this is at the top, and that'll allow that heat to sanitise that handle properly. You can see there. Now, if you end up with a little bit of a air bubble, don't freak out too much. That'll shrink as it all contracts as it cools. And over in the Braumeister itself, you can see we've got a nice little cone of all the trube and the like, and we'll deal with that in a sec. Now the rest of the water in this sparge heater that's turned off, it's just going to go into our bucket and we can use that to clean with. So there we go, that's the inside all cleaned out. Just going to flip it over and I'll show you how I deal with the pump. There you go, you can see I've gotten rid of all those hops. And we just let that air dry and we're good to go. Alright, let's see if we can get a post-boil gravity done. Turn the refractometer on. There we go, that's our sample. 1.048, missing by 1, but that's okay, because when we add our golden syrup, 200 grams of that is going to bump us up that 1 gravity point. So we'll save that. And it's been a couple of hours, so we're just going to come in with our cube spanner and we're just going to check this lid. And just make sure that that's still tight. There we are there. That's good to go now. Let's just have a bit of a look. That's still sitting at 56 degrees. All right, we just let that cool down naturally overnight. Now we've got the beer cubed, we need to go and toast some coconut. And again, we'll call on our distraction specialist to keep a lookout because the girl's not here at the moment, but she's due back any time. Righto guys, we need to get to the oven. Schnitty, you cover me. Sizzle, you got the front door. Let's move out. So that's been about 7 minutes inside our convection microwave. I've just been moving them around as you saw before. Alright, so that's us. And that's what you're looking for there, a nice golden brown. Alright, let's get them out. Now we're going to leave this to cool on the bench here and then pop them in a paper bag. Now our toasted coconut. Remember I said put it in a paper bag? The reason for that is you want the paper to absorb some of that coconut oil, because if that makes it into your beer, it'll completely kill the head retention in no time flat. So we're going to change this paper bag out tomorrow and the next day to absorb some of that coconut oil. And then this is going to get put into a Ziploc bag, vacuum packed, until we're ready to put it into the secondary fermenter. The other advantage of the paper bag is it allows the actual coconut to breathe. If you're ever going to make an oatmeal stout or the like and you toast the oats for that extra toasty flavour, that toasting can cause like an acrid, ashy flavour to go through your beer. So usually for about 10 days before I'm about to brew it, I'll toast the oats and put them in a paper bag just to allow them to gas off.
The next day.
Right, so we've had our cube sitting in the fridge. You can see that's sitting at about 20 degrees, so that's right to come out of there. We'll crack that open and get it into our fermenter in a sec. So I've got our all-rounder all set up, ready to go. That's just got 4 litres of star sand in the bottom, and that's been sitting there for about 20 minutes. I've also tested my spunding valve, make sure that that's going to blow off at 5 psi, so that's all done. There's about 5 psi in this. We'll let that pressure out and we'll start filling it up. So we'll just whack our all-rounder lid in Drain that star sand out. And we'll get ready with the cube. Okay, let's get our cube ready. So we'll come in, we'll give the top of the cube a shot of star sand. Give our cube spanner a shot of star sand as well. We'll break the seal on this cube. And I'll see if I can do this without getting in the way. Just empty that cube into that all-rounder. All right, so into our fermenter, our wrap pill. We'll actually put the beer line and filter on. We'll just fit that up. Okay, and we'll just pitch our yeast. In this case, we're using BRY 97. I'll just put the top of that off with our sanitised scissors and just sprinkle that in on top. And there's our second yeast, to be sure. Just line the top of our fermenter up. Make sure that that O-ring seals, and then we just want to wind this down to hold that in position. Now we've pre-checked our spunding valve, so I can fit that onto our gas line and just top this up with a bit of water from our rinse bottle. And that'll just make some bubbles for us and let us know that that spunding valve's working. We're just tucking back in the fermentation chamber now, set up that wrap pill, and we're good to go. And you can see there that that's all set up now, sitting at 24 with our target of 19. And we'll just let that profile run. And that's how it looks in the fermentation chamber. Job done. And that's what our paper bag looked like. You can see that soaked up plenty of that coconut oil, so we'll change that out while we're here. And there you have it, the ANZAC Biscuit Ale, a beer that's got all the malty, toasty goodness of that Anzac Day treat with that hint of coconut, rounding it out beautifully. Look, cheers to all the diggers, past and present, and everyone keeping the homebrew tradition alive. If you give this one a go, let me know how it turns out in the comments below. If you like this video, hit like and give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, well, hit like anyway. No one's gonna know. And if you want more homebrew content without all the fluff, subscribe and stick around. I promise it'll be worth it. Well, I'll catch us next time. Remember, life's too short to drink dodgy beers. Cheers. Oh yeah.